Here we go. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Empower DC sort of has a tradition of doing info sessions like this every 2 years when there's an ANC election. And so we're really happy to be joined by several people who are either current ANC commissioners, folks who are considering running for ANC, and we hope to join together in conversation. Our goal is to provide a little bit of nuts and bolts information about what ANCs are and how to run, but really to dig into the question of how can ANCs working alongside their communities and groups like Empower DC advance housing justice, advance racial equity, and tackle the issues that we face in our city. You know, Empower DC has been around for 19 years, going on 20, and we do have a lot of experience that has shown us both the failures when we don't have strong allies in ANC, or when ANCs themselves are just not highly, effective. And also the successes, what can happen when ANCs are highly effective. And we also recognize that ANCs, bear a lot of burden. It's a tough job. You don't get compensated. You're being asked to weigh in on things that you might not have real expertise or experience or background with. You don't have the support that you deserve oftentimes. So I say that to say it's our interest that as a community, we also be part of the support system to help ANCs be as effective as possible. And if you are not speaking, if you could just keep yourself muted, I'm gonna show just a couple short slides and then start with our panel. So let's see if I can do all the tech stuff smoothly. But while we're doing that, if you could just continue to introduce yourself in the chat. We'd love to see what wards and neighborhoods are represented, if there's any organizations, if you're a current ANC and want to mention that, or if you're definitely running, please share that as well. So let's see. I use 2 computers so that I don't, it's supposed to make it easier, but we'll see. I don't know. Here we go. And okay, so just a couple quick slides. Here we are today with the info session. And let's see, here we go. So this is our agenda. I'm gonna, give a tiny bit of background, then we're gonna dive right into conversation with 3 panelists who have joined us, and then we're really gonna open it up. So anybody here who wants to share, their knowledge, their experience, and questions, and we'll do it as facilitated as possible, just to make sure we can hear from multiple voices. And then before we close, we'll just go over the nuts and bolts of, what do you actually have to do to get on the ballot. And so just starting with a little bit of background about Empower DC, especially for those who may be new to the organization. We are a grassroots organization. We have a base of members and supporters in all 8 wards. Over the last 19 years, we've worked on multiple issues, childcare, education, housing, of course. But in the last several years, we've really, I think, solidified areas of focus, which are intersecting, overlapping areas of focus with equitable development. That includes our work in public housing and affordable housing, as well as planning, city, community planning issues like the comprehensive plan and others, environmental justice, working with neighborhoods that have been overburdened by industrial pollution or otherwise discriminated against, and racial equity, really making sure that when we as a city say we're doing racial equity analysis, that we mean it, and that we're actually doing something meaningful that has a real impact on people's lives and improves, really does move the needle. So that's just, if you're interested in learning more about our work, feel free to reach out or join our, you'll get our emails and come to some of our other meetings and events. So very quickly, basic information, and our panelists will tell us much more, but advisory neighborhood commissions were set up as part of DC's Home Rule Act. I'm sure most of you know that DC did not have home rule, meaning we did not get to elect our city council, our mayor, etc. And the commissions were, the first cohort of commissions were elected in 1975 and started working in 1976. So they're the same age as me. I just divulged my age, but yes. So for those 76 babies out there, bicentennial babies out there, they are elected. However, they're nonpartisan. So there's no primary. You don't have to say whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or anything else. And they are, unfortunately, I think, unfortunately, unpaid. So each single commissioner represents what's called a single member district, which represents about 2,000 residents, and that's how they're spread out across the city. I have to see, somebody on the call today, I'm sure, knows how many are there now, how many single member districts. We just went through redistricting, and I believe we've added some more commissions. So somebody tonight can tell us that new information. They are elected to 2-year terms in the even years. So all the commissioners are up for re-election at the same time. There's no staggering or anything like that. So every 2 years in the even years, all the commissioners are up for re-election. While they don't get paid, they do have a very limited budget for activities within the single member district. I'm sure the commissioners can tell us a little bit about that. And the thing that is most, I think, talked about and still, I think, not quite clear is the great weight that ANCs receive from district government. And that's what the statute calls it, great weight, meaning that when ANCs give input into a decision, one, they're supposed to receive notice about key types of decisions. Two, when they give input, they're supposed to, the city government or the agencies are supposed to receive that input, consider it with great weight, and in part that means reply with specificity to what the recommendation of the ANC is. So it doesn't mean that the commission or that the government has to do exactly what the ANC wants, except for evidently in the case of liquor licenses. I believe if the commission says no on a liquor license, that is pretty much the decision. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But with other things, it is input, guidance, and really for us, it's about political power. So it's how can we use, okay, so I was wrong. So Salim's already corrected me. Okay, so we can talk about that, Salim, if you want, in a little bit about the liquor licenses. But certainly in areas of zoning and development, ANCs play a major role. ANCs have standing, what's called standing at the zoning commission for zoning cases in their districts. And when you have standing, you get to have ample time to present your views. You can cross-examine the developer or whoever's applying for the zoning, consideration. You can present your own expert witnesses, etc. And so that is a key aspect, and we'll discuss it more, I'm sure, of how ANCs engage in the zoning and development process. And of course, developers often come before the ANC seeking support for their projects, and ANCs have an ability then to negotiate with developers about what those projects will include in terms of community benefits. And there's many other, types of decisions that are made that ANCs weigh in on, and we'll hear more from our commissioners about that, because I think what's really clear is that every community in the city is different. And so it's not the same being a commissioner in Adams Morgan as it is in Anacostia, because the concerns and the business environment and the residential environment, everything may have some nuances. So whereas in one neighborhood, the issue that people are facing might be, rats. In another neighborhood, it might be, illegal dumping. So it's just, this is something that I think we have to understand as a city, that not all neighborhoods have the same needs and same needs, therefore, from their ANC. These are just a few of the things that we know ANCs do and can do, and this is sort of the low-hanging fruit. Pass resolutions that articulate a view, that advocate a position, testify, of course, at council hearings. And of course, anybody can do that, but it's, often regarded differently when an ANC does it, especially if you're testifying on behalf of your ANC. It's kind of considered with more attention. And you also get the 5 minutes that, usually an organizational representative gets instead of 3 minutes. You, of course, can conduct outreach. And we hope you do. We hope you keep your community informed, because ANCs are really the first, the go-between between government and community. They receive notice that then the understanding or the expectation is that the ANC is then providing that notice to the community, right? So government sending it to the ANC, and that's the conduit supposedly to the community. I mentioned negotiating community benefits and engaging in planning initiatives, especially with the Office of Planning and in zoning hearings. And so that's just a really quick, sort of low level, again, the types of things that ANCs often do. We would really love to discuss tonight also things that are outside of this box, things that go a bit further, that really can build community power, that can really assist tenants at risk, really shape community-led equitable development, and like I said, really move the needle on racial equity. So I'm going to stop sharing here. And now I'm going to ask that we have Salim Adolfo, who is a commissioner in Ward 8. We have Lisa Gore, who's a commissioner in Ward 3 or 4 or both. I don't know. Tell me, Lisa, how that one works. 3/4. We'll talk about that in a second. And Paul Johnson, a commissioner in Ward 4. So I'm going to highlight them or spotlight them. Let's see. Spotlight. Spotlight. And Paul, spotlight. Okay. So how are the three of you doing tonight?
I'm doing good.
Good to see you all. Yeah. So these are three people that I enjoy working with and admire the work that they've done in their communities. And so I wanted to start the conversation with them. And if I could just first have you each just introduce yourself. And as you're doing that, if you could just talk briefly about your community that you represent and what motivated you to run for ANC. And why don't we go ladies first with Lisa. Oh, and are you muted or we just can't hear you? I don't think you're muted, but we couldn't hear you, Lisa.
You want me to jump in there while she fixes her tech issues?
Yeah, go ahead and do that, Salim, while she's working.
All right, I am Salim Adolfo. I serve as the commissioner for single member district 8C07, and I'm also the chair of the commission. I'm in Congress Heights, and my commission is unique in comparison to some other commissions because we have a mix of commercial property as well as residential. But the uniqueness of our commercial property is that it is severely underdeveloped and it is now being developed, St. East campus. So there's always something going on the campus. And that sparked me to want to become a commissioner because I didn't know that there was some $30 million project happening in my area and nobody said anything. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of money being spent and I don't know nothing about it. But then as I got more involved, I found out that's not a lot of money in comparison to some other things. And so being a commissioner for me is just another way to be more involved and engaged and elevate my advocacy. To be honest, I still do many of the things that I've done before I was a commissioner, which I think helps to enhance me being a commissioner. I find that many of my colleagues still have a lot to learn about being a commissioner, just to be honest, because we're supposed to be making recommendations on policy, budget, development of things in our community. And I find that many of us still want to do community service projects. And those are good. Those are good ways to introduce people to some policy issues, but you don't have to be a commissioner to do those things. So it becomes a little bit, no, I'm lying. It becomes a lot of bit frustrating when you're trying to do some different levels of advocacy and the people who you're surrounded by don't want to do those things. And I often hear people say, well, I don't need a title. But you do need the title because it's the commissioner that gets the great weight, not the just average everyday person. So whoever has the title needs to be able to make some decisions, and we're here to make decisions. I would say that one of the best things though about being a commissioner is that you get to be in those spaces and you get to get access to the information, and it's our job to help get that out. And so being that I get access to more information than the average person, that allows me to help people in ways that I ordinarily wouldn't be, because I wouldn't have that. But I'll pass it over to Ms. Lisa Gore. Let's see if she's back and ready to go.
Can you guys hear me? Yay, I fixed it. Okay, I might have to stop my video because it looks like on my end that I'm freezing. So hopefully
it's glitching a little.
Okay. But my name is Lisa Gore. I am very happy.
Sorry, go ahead, Lisa. Huh? Go ahead. I was just saying it was glitching a little, but not totally freezing. But
okay.
Go ahead.
Got it. So I'm gonna shut off my video just to kind of hopefully prevent that. But very happy to be here tonight. My name is Lisa Gore. I'm the ANC commissioner, and I will explain ANC 3/4G. I'm very happy to see a lot of folks on here that I know, some folks that I didn't know were being or are interested in being a commissioner. So I'll definitely give you an encouraging call to make sure you go on and pick up your petitions. So I serve ANC 3/4G is unique because we're divided between wards 3 and wards 4. And I believe we're probably the only commission in the city that is set up that way. So it's basically the Chevy Chase ANC, and there's 4 commissioners that sit on the ward 3 side of Chevy Chase, and there's 4 commissioners that sit on the ward 4 side, which basically comprise Barnaby Woods and Hawthorne. So I chose to be a commissioner right after I retired from public service. I did a long stint in the federal government, primarily working on housing issues and housing oversight, a lot of housing investigations. I had always been pretty active in my commission, starting out with our race task force on racism. I did some work in that. And one of the reasons I'm doing, definitely to get involved and to get our voice heard, but in my area, which is the backside of Hawthorne, furthest away from Connecticut Avenue, my community just felt like our voice wasn't heard, that a lot of the attention goes towards the ANC or the single member districts along the avenue. So they really wanted somebody that was going to get in there and advocate for our issues on this side of the ANC. And that's primarily why I joined. I wanted to be that voice for our SMD. So you'll hear a couple terms. One is ANC, that's the entire commission. And ANC is comprised of several SMDs. So SMDs are single member districts. And each single member district is, like Parisa had on a slide, roughly 2,000 people. So I wanted to make sure I was a good advocate for this SMD and bring our issues to the greater ANC. And so I ran, got elected. It was a very interesting experience because it was my first time running for office here in the district. So it did give me a great opportunity and I knocked on every door. So some of you guys, I know you're kind of wondering, well, how do I do this, election thing? I knocked on all my doors in my SMD, talked to as many neighbors as I could. It was a great way to meet people and to really hear about what their issues are impacting the area, and to bring that over into the ANC. And that's pretty much what I did. So our ANC works on a variety of things. We do not have some of the issues that are going on in some of the other ANCs. Like, I think we've only had one liquor license application. But one of the things that we we've been dealing with is a lot of infrastructure issue regarding traffic safety. And one of the biggest things that we're dealing with right now is development on Connecticut Avenue. That's a huge issue for our ANC for a while. We just got through the process of the small area plan being approved by the council. So one of the things I think that's very interesting that all eyes should probably be on this ANC, especially when it comes to this development issue along the avenue, is we, I believe, are the first small area plan to be passed by the council since this new comprehensive plan was enacted. We asked for the council to put in their resolution was an avenue for our ANC to have active participation in the development and the SAP implementation process. So that's going to be really critical. I would like, you know, for all ANCs, definitely take a look at that resolution and that language. So if you're going through that SAP process, you want to make sure that you get your decisions when, you know, the actual implementation of the small area plan comes about. And, you know, we have obviously the Beach Drive issue. So my ANC, or actually my single member district, sits right off of Beach Drive. So Oregon Avenue, Wise Road, and one of the, you know, big issues on that right now is the decision to keep that area closed off. So we'll be talking about that a little bit more at our upcoming meeting on Monday. But I definitely love my ANC work. It's a great way to advocate for the community. One of the things that I try to keep in the back of my mind, and I always like to tell folks, is you have to be a partner in the ANC. We all come with our, I don't want to say agendas, but our policy priorities. I'm a big affordable housing advocate. I you know, work with Parisa. That's kind of how I met her. On the Ward 5, environmental justice issues are huge to me. With the things that really, you know, get us up in the morning, and we want to advocate for that. But one of the things you have to keep in mind on the ANC is you have to work with fellow commissioners. In order to get those resolutions passed, you need a passing vote. And in order to get that great weight, it's better to have a 7-0 vote, you know, than a 3-4. So you really have to work with the commission and your fellow commissioners and your community to come up with the best scenario that you can in terms of those resolutions, and making sure that you're looking out for the community, and to be mindful of the ANC oath, which is to the District of the Columbia. So that's one thing that very early on with our new term for our ANC that we talked about, is that, you know, our oath specifically mentions that our viewpoints should be in the best interest of the District of Columbia as a whole. So that's something to keep in mind too.
Okay, thank you so much, Lisa. We heard everything that you said, but your audio does delay at different points. So I don't know if you are able to fix that or not, but we're going to go over to Paul and give you a chance to look into that. Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself, share a little bit about your about why you decided to run and the community you serve, and then we're going to get into questions for all of you. So you don't have to cover everything in your intro.
Okay, very well. I'm glad to be here. I'm grateful for the forum and for the opportunity. I am a ANC commissioner in Ward 4 in Uptown and Petworth in the Grant Circle area. I'm also a Ward 4 committeeman for the Democratic State Committee. I am quite fond of my neighborhood and my neighbors, and the assets and the institutions that are here, and the institutional sort of memory of the residents that are here. I draw sort of inspiration from that. I'm also motivated by sometimes, like not unlike what Lisa explained, was a lack of attention to the full spectrum of our residents here in our little corner of the district. I think that this area of Ward 4 is sort of the southern part. It's quite close to Ward 1. You have the main spine of Georgia Avenue with a lot of commercial corridor and transit and traffic, and there is the bucolic sort of Grand Circle. There is the old Soldiers Home. There's a lot of variety. There's small commercial corridors, and I think that I say all that to say, and then there's multi-generational households of residents that have been here for 50, 40 years, and there's a lot of new neighbors to this area as well. So it's a lot to hold. And often with change and with all of this dynamic and energy, there's conflict sometimes, and sometimes issues that arise, whether they're policy issues or perception issues, there can be conflict. And I have some training in mediation. And I think that interpreters, intermediaries, honest brokers that can help to mitigate some of these challenges, I think, are sort of useful. And that's part of what compelled me to sort of run. And I know we'll get into the specifics. I think there's a lot of sort of places to go to get a sort of definitional explanation for what an ANC commissioner or commission does. But I will be happy if everyone here and under the sound of my voice comes away encouraged to get engaged civically, to feel confident that they're qualified to sort of stand for this office. I don't believe that in gatekeepers. I believe in community power. One of the things that's exciting about Empower and about this community that we're building is to democratize power. And I think that it's important with the zoning, the land decisions, the transportation decisions, the amenities that are here, and the things that aren't highlighted as well. So I'll sort of close with, I think that I would encourage you all to bring your full selves to this role, because in addition to the specifically enumerated functions of a commissioner, there are other things about us, about you, that really bring value to a position like this. You're looked at as a leader. You can inform, shape the narrative. And I think that whether it's art, whether it's youth focused, whether it's some of your professional experiences that you bring to bear in service of the community, I would encourage you to bring your full selves to this and think about creative ways to move the needle in service of our constituents. I'll stop there.
And you also, we heard every word, but you do have a little delay here and there as well. So I guess a lot of us having tech, little slowness. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, but then go to the chat and the questions in there. I do want to also acknowledge that there's some other active commissioners on the line. If anybody is a current ANC commissioner, if you could put it in the chat or raise your hand. I saw Commissioner Salvador from Ward 5, I believe Trinidad. I saw Nancy McWood from Ward 3. And I know there's some others who are former ANCs, but if there's any other current ANCs that want to just acknowledge that you're here. And as we get in the discussion, we really do invite everybody to chime in. So I'm just going to ask a couple of questions to our panelists. I think You know, every neighborhood is different, so it probably is different for each one of you. But can you describe, and I'll start with Salim, can you describe, like, not a day in the life because that's too little, but maybe like a week? Like, what's your typical, what is it like for real, like to be an ANC? What are you doing? How much time does it take? And what types of things are you doing on a day to day?
So that's a really good question. And honestly, for me, I think it's going to be a little bit different than even some of the other commissioners. Was a lot of bit different than some of the other commissioners I have in my commission. I've been very active on social media with showing some of the things that I've done as a commissioner. So I wound up getting a lot of phone calls and emails. I get messages on Instagram, Nextdoor, Twitter, Facebook, now TikTok, and LinkedIn about issues that people have. And to be honest, it's starting to become overwhelming because I don't have many commissioners that are as active as I would like in my commission, or some of the other commissioners and other ANCs aren't as active. And so their work starts to pile up on the faces that are most visible and more widely known. And I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's a lot of work. I find myself feeling like I'm a constituent services person for a council member or for the mayor sometimes. So there's that part. Then there are, like, I will look at the council's calendar periodically throughout the week to see what new legislation may have popped up, and then try to bring it back to the commission to see if this is something that we want to pass a resolution on. And it's really difficult to learn a lot and be proficient on housing, public safety, healthcare, education, transportation, zoning, environmental issues. And so I belong to a plethora of organizations. Like, one organization I work with is the National Society of Black Engineers. And so when we have issues around transportation or environmental issues, like, I'm going to them and it's like, hey, I need some help on this. And I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. I tell them, hey, tell me what I need to say, right? But I'll do some reading. So that takes a lot of, like, for me, that takes a lot of time, just being able to understand those things. And I think that if we do have any great weight, I believe that it's just not because it's 7 of us that represent 14,000 plus people. I think it's because we've organized in the community and we got residents to show up to something to say, okay, well, here is our weight, because you see the presence of the community here. And not every commission can say that. And we haven't always had that. And we don't have that on every issue. But one issue in particular was around liquor stores here. And we had a 6-year-old girl who was killed last summer, Nia Courtney. And because we had already started to protest that particular liquor store, Mart Liquor, when the shooting happened, we already had residents to come out to the press conference that the mayor held. And we was like, this place needs to go. And the chief of police shut it down for 96 hours. But, that was because the community was present. We had already done the grassroots work of organizing, knocking on doors and getting people in the room. So I think that your weight is not just in the fact that you're commissioners, from my experience, but in the fact that you have an organized community that's willing to back whatever it is that you're saying as commissioners. And that takes time. And I think on a day-to-day basis, making phone calls, sending emails, like, we have a newsletter we send out, we have social media pages, and just running any organization, it takes time to have somebody manage all of your communications. Then you got folks that want grants. Then you have people who want you to do something that their ward council member didn't do. So then you have all of those things. So and if you have commercial activity, then you're getting a bunch of emails about community benefits agreements. Developers want to present. You got zoning issues. Like, we have Barry Farm in our commission. So it fluctuates, but there are times when there's issues around Barry Farm, then there are times when there aren't. And if you're doing traffic safety assessments for speed humps or just trying to have other traffic calming elements going on, then you're communicating with DDOT. And I think it's important to remember that the people on the other side are also humans, right? So they have issues that they're going through, and they're not always as responsive. And you still got to go to work, wash clothes, and dry them, fold them and put them away. So all of those things take time. And I think the more effective you are, and I'm still learning this and just trying to become a better leader as the chair, is to not just delegate, but to try to explain to people the importance of what it is that you're doing and why you need them to participate in their success. And so something I didn't do in the beginning, like 3 years ago when I became a commissioner, what I'm doing now is I'm asking the residents to participate in helping with whatever the ask is you have of me. And so the more that we can get people involved, I think Mr. Johnson said it best, is that then we can not have that savior mentality of like, we don't have to be the gatekeeper of the power. It's we can all share in the power, then we have more of an organized community, because I won't be the commissioner forever. And so then somebody else will have to step in, and you don't want it to lag off. You want them to improve upon the foundation and the legacy that you set. So like now I'm learning how to incorporate residents more. So I know I said a lot, but just on a day-to-day basis, like it just doesn't slow down, honestly, mainly because we have a lot of development. And it was also election season. So you saw a lot of stuff happening that you wouldn't have seen previously. So it's sending emails, responding to emails. I get emails 24/7. And I think that's to be expected when you got 14,000 plus people, because everybody's on a different time clock. Some residents, work 9 to 5, some work overnight. So depending upon when they have the time to communicate with you. But I think that if you are in a more residential area, it's a little bit slower. But if you're in a commercial area, then you're always going to have issues. And finally, I would say, operational tempo is often based upon how much you want to give. I have a hard time saying no and setting boundaries. So like I'm always around, but I kind of ask for that by making myself as accessible. So I would say you have to figure out how engaged you want to be. If you want your office hours to be like 9 to 5, then that's what they'll be. So I don't have to have care for children or anything like that. So my time is a lot different than somebody else who may have those. So I would just say, just keep that in mind. But I can tell you, HC is extremely active.
Thank you, Salim. That's really helpful. And for those of you who don't follow him on social media, you should. He's really effective at walking through the community and, taking a picture, putting out a little video of him talking about the issue, the dumping, the car that needs to be removed, whatever it is, tagging the agencies responsible. And, I think, Salim, you probably are doing that more. There's other commissioners that do it, but I think you're probably the most prolific at it. You seem to be doing it on a regular. Please, yeah, go ahead.
So I will tell you that Sunday mornings, I'll just drive around my commission area, and then I'll see some stuff. And so then I'll do all of that stuff, and then I'll just share it, throughout the week. But I encourage all of the commissioners that I work with to just walk through your neighborhood. You'll see a power line that's down, you may see a pothole, or you may just run into something that you didn't even know was an issue, because there's tons of stuff on the 311 app. And what I try to tell them to do is every month, let's give an S&B report. So then at the end of the year, we can put together our annual report, and it becomes a whole lot easier that way. But I just try to walk the neighborhood and find out what's going on. So I would encourage everybody, to do that.
And Commissioner, is a new approach or an added thing. Maybe we could do a session on folding fitted sheets. Completely defeats me.
Well, I learned how to do that in the Army, so
it is an art form.
All right, so we're gonna get in one or two more questions and then go to the chat. Paul and Lisa. So let me start with Lisa. Hopefully we got your sound better on the new device. You can choose which tact you want to take. I want to know either something that you've been that you're proud of, that you've been able to accomplish as ANC, or something that you hope to accomplish as ANC, or maybe both, but share something like that.
Yeah, let me piggyback a little bit off of what Salim said in terms of just the day, and then I'll go into the accomplishment. And he really wrapped it up really nicely. I usually start my day off, and I'm a retiree. So let me say one thing. I could not have done ANC commissioner and my full-time government job. There's no way. But I don't want to scare people off, but I think Salim did a great job in saying he's going to be honest about the level of activity and sometimes what you will encounter in your single member district or in your ANC. So if you're thinking about running, you do have to come with the understanding that it takes some work. And depending on where you are, it could be more work than other locations. Our first year when we, my commission, I think, and Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we had 6 new commissioners out of a 7-member commission. So we were all new except for our chair. And we, for that entire first year, were drinking through a water hose. It was incredibly busy, incredibly busy. So just keep that in mind and lean on, you know, your fellow commissioners and people on this call to kind of help you navigate that process. And Salim is right. You're going to have to figure out what your boundaries are. And I think all of us with our experience, whether you're still working your full-time job, whether you're, you know, stay-at-home mom, you know, retiree like me, all those life experiences make you a great commissioner. And we need all of those different aspects and different voices at the table. But that does come into play in terms of your boundaries and how much time you have to give. So make time for yourself, set your boundaries, do that very early on. It's still difficult with me. I try to do most of my commission work before 12 noon. I'm not always successful at that. I do a lot of the reading. So one of the things Salim talked about is reading. Right now, I'm on the Beach Drive study. And right behind that is a DDOT study. And both of those studies are like 100, almost 200 pages long. So it's all technical. It's very technical and you're sitting there like, you know, pulling your hair out. But like Salim said, tomorrow we're on a call with someone that could help us, you know, try to navigate some of those issues. And don't be bullied. Don't be bullied by the community. You're going to have times where they're going to be like, I want to see the ANC's resolution, or the ANC isn't doing this. And you're trying to get all that information together. So just, you know, it is a very busy position. And I hope ANCs, I am one person that is definitely a proponent of paying ANCs for their work, because you will see this can be a full-time job. If you let it be that, it can be full-time. With that being said, one of the things that I'm probably most proud of, I'm like a big communications person. I'm really happy that I was able to get my single member district communications together, because we just didn't have any. We didn't have a website. We didn't have an email. Nobody really kind of knew what was going on in our particular single member district. One of the things that I'm hoping to do, because I was just elected chair of Chevy Chase, is broaden that out to the entire ANC. Something else Salim talked on is the social media, just the engagement process, getting people engaged in what's going on in the ANC is critical. And you have to be able to balance that as well, because you're going to have people that hate bike lanes. And then you're going to have people that love bike lanes. You got to be able to talk to both of them. So you're going to have to be able to balance that and get that communication process together. Our ANC just got hammered on the SAP because we had a lot of people in the community felt like we didn't in particular do a good job with community engagement and outreach. I think we did a hell of a job, but if you ask some people, they're going to say you guys didn't do enough. Just be ready to refute that with what you did do. But, you know, think about, you know, that engagement process. And that's something that I hope to strengthen in my time as chair, whether it's just through this interim period or if, you know, further down the road in January elections. But I really would like to develop a process where we can reach out to the community fairly quickly when things are happening, often that we get our social media up and we get our engagement process down pat. That's something I think our commission struggles with. And it's that technology piece. You know, we do have a lot of older commissioners that aren't into technology as much as some of the younger folks. So that's something that we're going to have to struggle with. But that is critical. When you're dealing with big issues, you have to try to engage the community as much as possible. So that's something that I'm hoping to strengthen in 3G.
Thank you, Lisa. And I want to ask Paul the same question and then open it up for the questions that we've seen in the chat. So something either that you're really proud of that you've accomplished or you hope to accomplish, or both, Paul.
Sure. I'll speak a little bit about some accomplishments I'm proud of, but if you allow me to get a little new age, I want to say that, you know, when all of you on the call are elected commissioners, you know, this is sort of a frontline politics and people engagement, right? So you're really, you know, seeing it closely. And, you know, I would encourage you all to, you know, have self-care, you know, give some forethought into how much you want to give. And, you know, however you quantify that, you know, in terms of time or in terms, you know, Lisa was talking about, you know, how she apportions her day. But, you know, think about how much time that you want to give, because you really have wide latitude. You're bringing yourself to the table. So, you know, some people are better at writing resolutions. You know, I really forcefully reject that there's one prescribed way to be in ANC, you know, I think that there's wide latitude. I think that there's really no enforcement to compel you to do anything. You're not paid. You really can't be removed unless it's a recall or it's at the ballot box. And I'm not saying that that is good, but I'm saying that it's a reality. So I think that when, as Salim was saying, when a lot of people are coming at you with a lot of energy, and, you know, many of us are first time dipping our toes in these waters, it's a lot to handle. So I think that, you know, give some thought to how you self-care and how you fill your cup up and all of those good euphemisms. I think that, you know, I want to also say that just for yourself, because again, I mean, I'm sure we'll give our information and specific questions. We're happy to follow up about kind of what that means. But, you know, I'd like to impart upon you all that this is a great learning opportunity. Like, I'm fairly intellectually curious, and you learn a ton, even through the slings and arrows. You really learn a lot with this opportunity about how government functions or doesn't, how, you know, what animates people. And I think that, you know, it's just a great learning opportunity for better or for worse. I also think that, you know, social media, I would caution folks that, you know, social media is one realm, but I don't think it's the only realm. And I think that you should consider that in how you engage. And I think it manifests in terms of how you notice, how you reach out to people, you know, whether, you know, some people are more tactile. You know, I think that those things matter. And I try to focus on that. As far as what I've done that I feel good about is you know, I try to incorporate, as I said, I talked about bringing myself to the table. You know, I like art. I like culture. I like, you know, cosmopolitan sort of values. So, you know, I use art and the rich tapestry of art and culture that exists here in Petworth in Ward 4 to build community building initiatives. So, for example, there are these public installations of art by a octogenarian former SNCC member named Uziki Nelson. There's one in Crestwood, Lisa, on 16th in Arkansas, and we happen to have one right across from the Petworth Library. It's dedicated to Paul Robeson. We, on the anniversary of Paul Robeson's birth, which is April 4th, We had a cleanup. We had a teach-in. We involved Roosevelt High School. We had the legacy, legendary, luminary artistic community like Tony Browder, Paul Coates, Ta-Nehisi Coates' father, Ziki Nelson, Janua Moja. We had art foundations. And the point is that this is a use of public space. This is a public art installation to beautify the area. It's actually a sacred space. Forgive me for new age. I bring that to the table too, but it's really a sacred space and it's just here and people don't sort of know about it. I think that oftentimes there's a lot of acrimony in how things get discussed with the ANCs. And I think there could be, we would be well served to bring more levity and community building activities to the table in your role as an ANC, even if it's not a resolution. So I would encourage you to think about that. I was part of the founding core of 3 that funded, that produced, if you will, Petworth Porch Fest. We were in the midst of COVID. Yeah, we were in the midst of COVID. We got people to come out. There was street revelry, acoustic music. We've had 2nd year in a row. Doing that is a success, and it's art, it's culture, it's bringing people together. It's not a resolution, it's not a zoning matter, it's not a liquor license, but it is something that's intangible but real in my estimation. I would also say that I'm proud of the always stop sign, a resolution that I wrote for a dangerous a stop sign at 5th and Webster that we worked on with DDOT to get done. But here again is another example. There's a lot of energy within the last couple of years. Commissioners that preceded me to write letters and petitions and studies to finally get it done. But, we have to remember, and I'm not a native Washingtonian, I'm from Philadelphia. I've lived here for 10 years. But when I talk to my neighbors who have lived here 40 years, they told me they've been talking about this stop sign for 20 years, 30 years. So, we can't take credit. This is, success has many authors, and we need to spread it around, recognize the institutional legacy. And I think what I like about this space is that this is about building power ultimately and spreading equity. And I think that over time, some voices are not heard or not given the same deference, and their interests aren't flagged. And that's what I would say to anyone running for ANC. Seek out the full spectrum of the community, disaffected constituents, marginalized constituents, and be fair. Okay. And I think we need more of that. Lastly, I would say that on hard policy matters, public land, surplus of public land. There's a lot of development up and down the Georgia Avenue corridor. There's a firehouse, Engine 22. There's a DEMPED process. And again, we can talk about all this, but the point is that there's space, there's public space, there's a lot of building. How is it built? Who's it built for? What are the amenities? When public land is used in the service of that, the community should have a say. How are they noticed? How are they engaged? How are you as an ANC going to work to make sure that that's done fairly? No one's going to make you do it. It's the point, right? So, and I should also say, if you don't get over the finish line to be an ANC, there's also value in understanding, what ANCs do or should do or could do, and you build community and pressure to hold them accountable, not unlike you would any other elected politician. So I think that that's important as well. And the last thing I'll say in terms of the zoning issue is dance loft, right? On 14th Street, there was a PUD. It was a lot of attention. I think it was just approved by the zoning commission. I think it was one of the first post-comp plan cases that spoke about racial equity tools and analysis. Even if it's in name only, it's still something that many on this group and Parisa and other parts of the coalition have injected and mainstreamed. So I think that our work as ANC 4C in shepherding that PUD through, I think is an accomplishment. But even with that, I would caution that there's nuance in these issues. You know, things are ostensibly about a bike lane, or ostensibly about affordability, but the question is in the nuance. You know, what are the levels of affordability? How long will they hold? You know, bikes and the question of explaining to the full spectrum of the community about what that means, and even if there's disagreement, giving people respect. I'm sorry, Farida. You know, respect is very important for me. You know, I don't like haughty, you know, high and mighty, dismissive local politics. You know, and I would encourage you all not to be that way. You know, reach out to your people in the community, respect them enough to listen to them, you know, explain your view, and, you know, let the chips fall where they may. But, you know, this sort of mocking and, you know, mocking people on forums who aren't there or don't use that facility, I think that's bad. And I think that what's exciting to me about this group is to form a mentality in a community and a spirit that treats people with respect, respects institutional legacy, recognizes that change is not easy. And I think that's our potential here. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul, for, you know, bringing in those elements of arts and culture and, you know, sort of community building. And yes, I mean, everything with organizing is about relationships at the root, you know, and we cannot build power if we don't have relationships, if we don't respect one another, if we can't mediate, if we can't, you know, enjoy each other's company as well. So what I'm going to do is a lightning round of questions from the chat. And I say lightning round because we're, you know, ticking down time, and I want to make sure we have at least 5 minutes at the end to just go over the nuts and bolts of how to get on the ballot and all of that. If I have permission, I would like to add to the panel Commissioner Salvador and Commissioner Nancy McWood, if they don't mind. And what I will do is just ask a question, just ask one person on the panel to respond, and to do it, you know, in a minute or less so that we can get through the questions. So Salvador and Nancy, are you open to being added? I'm putting you on the spot, but you know, more voices, the better.
No
you can
problem,
say no.
No problem.
Don't mind. Okay, so I'm gonna add you to the spotlight. And was there any other current commissioners? Nancy, were you okay with it as well?
Sure, that's fine.
Good sport. Good sport. Okay. Any other current commissioners in the audience that I have? Salvador, I'm looking for you. Let's see. Okay, so again, let's try to keep the responses brief. Salvador, if you can put your camera on, I will be able to add you to the spotlight. So the first question is, do all ANCs ever come together to see where there's a commonality of issues? Who would like to answer? Salim.
No. Next question.
No. Okay.
Wait.
That was brief enough that we could allow a little bit more elaboration. Lisa?
Yeah, they're not entirely all ANCs, but we do have ANC caucuses. So there's a Vision Zero caucus. There's another meeting, I think Monday nights, where a bunch of the ANCs jump on and do talk about issues, but it is splintered. It's not everyone in its entirety. I believe we also have Rainbow Caucus. Salim, other commissioners, any other caucuses I'm missing? Okay.
Okay, let's go to the next one. What kind of orientation or prep is provided, or what do you recommend to read or watch that will be helpful for new ANC commissioners? Who would like to handle that one?
I could jump in there. Oh, I'll let Nancy take it.
Go ahead, Nancy. You might be the most tenured commissioner on the panel. I'm not sure. How many terms have you served? Go ahead and introduce yourself real quick.
10.
10 years or 10 terms?
10 terms.
Whoa, so that's
Oh,
20
wow.
years, y'all.
That's for
That's a long.
you.
Okay,
Yeah.
go
They better
ahead
have a
and
statue for you in your SMD.
I know. So you want to?
And for those who don't know me, I'm a commissioner in Ward 3 on ANC 3C. As far as orientation and training, the Office of ANCs does a training for new commissioners. They also do a training for chairs and treasurers on each ANC at the beginning of the term, the 2-year term. Other departments, for example, the Office of Zoning does training periodically. So there are certainly opportunities to get trained, and particularly when you're first elected.
Nancy or anybody else, anything you would recommend somebody read or watch if they're thinking about running?
Definitely, I would recommend. Hello, my name is Salvador. I'm a commissioner over here in Trinidad in Ward 5, ANC 5D. I would really recommend you connecting with commissioners already on the commission. That's how I really was able to get some segue in my neighborhood. We had a lot of new commissioners come in when I came in, and I was able to lean on some that have already been there for a few terms, just watching what they did, learning what they did. So I would really recommend that route, because the OANC does provide, also with other agencies, do provide trainings throughout the year. So those are helpful, but reach out to commissioners that have already been doing the work. They know how some of the things work around your potential commission. So I would really recommend that. That helped me out a lot.
I think that, yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I think that this is an unpaid position and it's under-resourced, and, you know, it conflicts with your personal life and your professional life. But I think that it depends on how you learn. It depends on how flustered or bothered you are by that, you know. It just kind of depends. I think that, and it also takes time. Like you're not going to, I remember, first off, I want to say I'm a first-term commissioner. I remember 3 years ago, 2 years ago, sitting on panels, listening to Nancy and Celine, you know, and, you know, they were very impressive then and they're very impressive now. And I remember Nancy saying, like, it takes time, like, to figure out where the bathroom is. Like, you're not going to know everything. It's a complicated organism, of municipal government. Like, you're not, right? And I mean, I'm feeling at home here because it irks me to hear so much snark about how, there's just there's a lot to navigate. You don't have a lot of support. That's true. I think if you can choose to focus on that, and but I think that there's also a lot of opportunity to build community. It depends on your mentality and depends on your approach. I don't think there's one single tome to read. I mean, even on zoning, right? Like, you don't know everything that you can do. It takes confidence to learn, like, the acronyms. Like, sometimes you'll be across the table with professional, not sometimes, with professional land use attorneys. How are you going to compete with that? It takes time. So, like, don't put I mean, everyone's different. Washington, D.C. has a lot of type A people. I would caution you, though, not to put too much pressure on yourself. I think you should build community with people who know things that you don't know, and try to attack it that way. There's no way to know everything. No, you don't have support, but it's a great opportunity to learn. People will take your call. Be confident enough to say what you don't know, and be humble enough to ask for what you don't know. And like Salvador said, yeah, seek out the institutional knowledge that's here. I'll also say there's a level of ANC commissioners from like 20 years past that are sort of like still around that you should seek out and talk to. They're not on Twitter, they're not on social medias, but they're around and they can really inform your view and your perspective and your approach.
Mhm.
Paul, and I would just add, there's organizations in DC that you can partner with. So I see the legal clinics at all of the universities as a great resource. They have housing clinics and community development clinics, and maybe form some of relationships that can provide that kind of support. Help us draft a policy or help us do research on this or that. With students. Okay, so the next question, has a panelist ever encountered a situation where DC residents from a different ANC come to your meeting because they felt they were impacted by an issue based in your commission? If so, what's your approach to listening to those residents? So basically, do you listen to the people who don't live in your SMD about issues? Who wants to answer that?
I got
Oh
it.
my God.
Okay, Salim, you got it, because you got Barry Farm with those outsiders always coming over there. Yes, go ahead.
I get it all the time. And the truth of the matter is, Advisory Neighborhood Commission meetings are open meetings for anybody that wants to come, whether you're a DC resident or not.
Very
And
public.
are supposed to afford the community and time to express their concerns. And so then you just have to address it, as tactfully and politely as you can, if it's somebody that's giving you, grief. But for the most part, I think that because of the way our communities are, two commissions can be split right down one street. So if you do something on one street, it can impact another. Or let's say if it's a school, it might be in your commission, but like for us, we have two public high schools in Ward 8. And so we definitely have to have cross commission collaboration for like Ballou High School, because you got 3 commissions where we have students that go to Ballou High School. Or if it's an issue such as we have a UDC campus in our ward, and I believe this is the only campus east of the Anacostia River. So it might be something that we may have to discuss with Ward 7, just like we have with the hospital. So that's not just something that is specific to that's SMD or that commission. It could be something that impacts the entire city, such as the St. Elizabeth's campus, Barrett Farms, the EA Sports Arena. But I'm gonna tell you what complicates things even more, and it wasn't part of the question, is that we have joint base Anacostia bowling in our commission. And so that's a military base where we barely see the residents that live on that base, but they are forced by law to interact with us. And that complicates it even more. So I would love to talk to the commissioner who has the White House or has the US Capitol, because I can only imagine what that may be like.
All right, we're going to speed through to the next one. How can you be an effective commissioner if you have a full-time job?
Oh, child.
Partnership, work with other people, work with Empower DC, work with a lot of groups that do work in specialized areas. And the thing I think to remember the most is that the people who you're working with are there until they're not there. So if you don't like working with somebody, it's like tough, because that person is there until somebody else gets elected or appointed in those positions. And so the role is to help advance the cause of the residents. So if I don't like working with, for example, the mayor's Mokers, community relations people, they're there. I'm not gonna be able to get some new ones in. So I need to figure out how to work with some of those folks. And so just building relationships makes it easier. So if you got a full-time job, the more you can build relationships and then just connect people like via email or a phone call, the better you'll be.
Or have some of your residents build relationships. Sorry to cut someone off, but have some of your residents, your potential constituents, build relationships with folks that you kind of can't seem to be able to connect with. I live in Ward 5. I do not have the best relationship with constituent services for my council member or my council member. So anyone that happens to have those relationships with in my SMD, I tell them to use them. Like, I'm here, you can use me as a tool. I might not be able to be a bridge for that office per se on a specific subject matter, but you could be that for us. So it's getting those allies in, knowing who is available in your neighborhood. Specifically, doesn't have to be in your SMD, but it can be in your commission. And I myself, I work a full-time job. I do some stuff outside of the ANC work as well. But I just try to build my network, because at the end of the day, it's to help the residents and your neighbors. And to be honest with y'all, it feels like you're trying to solve world hunger. But as long as you have folks on your behind you to have your back, you should be good. So just be glad that we got some good neighbors out here that they don't need the title of ANC to still help out.
Yeah, I wanted to say that the DC Register, which comes out every Friday, is good to read. You know, it's good to read to get a sense of you know, what's officially happening in the DC government. This is a good grounding to understand things. I think that could you hear me?
Yes, we heard you. Go ahead.
Okay. I think also too, you know, throwing your hat in the ring to testify in front of council is a good opportunity. You don't need to be an ANC commissioner to testify in front of council, but you know, having a commissioner, I guess you get some level of priority, which is good to practice in doing that. I think that I forgot what the question was, but I was, you know, wanted to comment on something that was said about the boundaries and you know, again, it gets to your self-concept. I mean, there's many commissioners that I heard someone use the phrase SMD-ism, like to sort of look at these issues in strict terms just within their arbitrarily defined borders. You know, I guess you could approach life like that, but I don't. I mean, you know, you have to balance being respectful of your colleagues, and it gets to what Lisa was saying about having a good rapport and working together and all these kind of things. But I think that I would encourage you to think more broadly and not just with your defined SMD, because when we're talking about large projects, I mean, are you serious? Like, I mean, does the notice only pertain to people within 200 feet as it's written in the zoning measure, or does it broadly affect everybody? You know, I learned that. I'm sorry.
Thank you for that. I'm going to move us forward because we are running out of time. Can somebody put a link to the DC Register in the chat? That was mentioned. And again, yeah, this is coming out every Friday. It's a list basically of all the government actions, hearings, coming up, anything that's been noticed, they gave official notice about. And unfortunately, no DC resident looks at the register. I mean, who would? It's very difficult to even find. They don't tweet about it. There's no like way to just look at each individual issue. It's overwhelming to look at, but it is where they officially put notice for things. And I just have to take 1 second to acknowledge that my favorite DC resident joined. I think it's okay if I play favorites because Miss Freeman is my sweetheart that I've worked alongside on Cromell School for 20 plus years. She attended the school and I see her here. I don't think she minds if I say that she attended Cromell in the 40, graduated 6th grade in 42, I believe, and is I think 91, Miss Freeman, is that right? She's
Okay,
over in Deanwood now. And so I'm just grateful to see her face, her beautiful face here on the Zoom. So thanks for being on, Miss Freeman. Good to see you. Okay, the next question is, why would an ANC refuse to have a telephone number, even a Google number? So I'm going to translate this into, what do you do if you have an ANC who doesn't want to be reached? Anybody want to comment on that briefly? Do you go around them? Do you go to the other commissioners? Do you go to the chair?
Well, there's a, you know, at the redistricting committee in Ward 4, I'm sorry, did anyone else want to take a stab at it? I'm not talking too much. Okay, at the redistricting committee in Ward 4, there was some complaints about that, about a section that's not getting attention. And I think, I don't know, you can't take away the salary. You can go under a recall effort, I guess. You could wait to the election, but I think you have to use people power and organize and, you know, expand your group to compel or to go to the council member or perhaps go to other commissioners. But it's all about organizing and building out your community and your power base.
Thank you. So the next question is, are ANCs meeting virtually or in real life? And if virtually, is there a plan to meet in real life?
Dan says it's both. HCs and definitely meeting in person now, whereas we have some commissions that are still meeting virtually. I think the mayor extended emergency order, at least as it relates to ANC.
To allow so.
Till the end of the calendar year. So I would expect that some commissions might be back in person in January or February.
Okay, I'm gonna ask this to Lisa and Nancy. Who is the GOAT of ANC commissioners of the last 25 years? Any memorable, effective people we should know about in DC history?
Wow.
Greatest of all time ANC commissioners. Does anybody come to mind? There's been a lot of notorious ones. I don't know if they're always
I was gonna say,
positive.
yeah.
Those would stand out more.
Those
You
are
come to
interesting
mind, but
too.
I'm gonna hold my tongue. Any
N-
that were
none-
just, yeah, go
I
ahead,
don't know
Lisa.
if I have one that's, greatest of all times. And I just came on the ANC in 2020, so Nancy might be better. I know I've just worked with a ton around the city that are just tremendous. So I'll just say that, from Celine to Paul to everyone on my current ANC, there are tremendously great, talented ANC commissioners across the city that definitely go unrecognized, that can lead this city at any chosen point in time. They're tremendous. I can't state that. We have some really talented people in the ANC.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think there are an awful lot of people that come to mind all over the city who've been really effective ANC commissioners, and they may be well known in their own neighborhoods, but they more than likely are not that well known in other parts of the city, but they've been very effective in representing their neighborhood. And in my area, ANC 3C, our most well-known, at least, commissioner, it was Phil Mendelson. He served on the ANC, I think, for 20 years.
Well, the mayor started as an ANC commissioner
Yeah.
too,
Started
right?
as ANC
Somebody pointed that out.
commissioner.
And yet we're still
Stepping stone for
Adrian
many.
Fenty was an ANC commissioner, so
so
and even people like Jack Evans was an ANC commissioner. So there are it's a good launching pad, I suppose. It's a good learning experience. But the ANC movement as such, I think, is really a great legacy for the city, and hopefully will continue for many, many years.
Peter, you have a greatest of all time? Is that what you're raising your hand?
No.
Is that?
no,
Oh, okay. Okay, well, just hold on one second. I'm going to try to get through a couple more questions, and then I'll give you a chance. So, the office of ANCs was led by Gottlieb Simon since its creation until last year. How has it been operating since? Is it helpful? Is it effective, or what's going on at Office of ANCs?
I see this is the portion of the program where we practice our diplomatic skills. Is that
Right.
No, it's a period of, well, I'm a first term commissioner, right? So I don't have the comparative knowledge, but we had some really contentious issues in my ANC 4C around opinions from the Office of Attorney General, and who has standing for clarity in between the OAG and the Office of ANC, which Gottlieb held. Sometimes that's not easy to negotiate. If you're not a lawyer, you don't understand. Anything can be challenged or questioned, and then what does enforcement look like? So I think that, and that's before you get to technical support or the repository of knowledge between commissions. Like Lisa had said, we were and are, I guess now, a 10-member commission, but we had seven new members, 70% turnover. So, I think my understanding of Gottlieb was that he, was there a long time, and I think that the office needs some change, some change, and change is not easy. And how are we negotiating that? And I think they're still sort of figuring that out. So it's not easy to negotiate. I don't know what all of you think.
Well, I think that there hasn't really been much of a change. I mean, for me personally, Gottlieb was there to give guidance, and it's ultimately up to you to make a decision. Either way, I do believe that he tried his best to help people interpret the policy. But if I'll read the DC code on ANCs for fun, so I can know what I'm talking about. So I didn't have to refer to him, for a lot of things. But I think that we misinterpret what the role is, because I've seen commissioners send him an email or go to him to ask him to be the final authority on, can we do this or can we do that, or should a commissioner do this or shouldn't a commissioner do that? And oftentimes his response was, well, what does your bylaw say? And so I think that you really just have to pay attention to the DC code and pay attention to your bylaws and read Robert's Rules of Order. I think that's really helpful for a lot of commissioners if they can just be, and Robert's Rules of Order is a tough read for a lot of people, especially if you're just not familiar with that kind of language. So I recommend Robert's Rules for Dummies. It's helped out a lot for me and for our commission. But I ultimately think that it's not really been a big change, at least for us over here in 8C.
And just to piggyback off of that, I think that's one of the things, though, that has to change, because being a volunteer body, 296 odd commissions, however many commissioners, there has to be a repository of information and where we can go to get guidance. And they obviously can't say 3G, I want you to do this. But when we go and ask that question, there has to be someone that's able to guide us through these issues, that has a legal authority and background to do so, and the knowledge to do so. One of my issues with Office of ANC, and this is just to let everyone know, we in our commission have been really dealing with them on some of the tech issues. Our former chair was in a committee, and I can't remember, I'm sorry, I forget the acronym, about just coming together on the technology side. Some commissions don't have operating websites. Some commissions do. So on the technology side, that is a huge issue that as commissioners individually and collectively, we have to keep pressing. Council member Robert White, who oversees that, as well as Office of ANC, to get ANCs the operating the infrastructure, the minimum bare necessity, bare bones operating infrastructure that we need to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no consistency across ANCs. Everyone, some have newsletters, some don't. Some have websites, some don't.
Right.
Some have committees that residents can be a part of, and some don't. So I think that consistency is important in order to make sure that there's equity. Like, everybody needs those structures and systems and supports to do their job. There was one last question, and then I'm putting up on the right now the screen information about the nominating petitions, and we'll review this in one minute. But the question is, do you get more people turning out to your meetings based on who's on the agenda? If there's like a prominent speaker, is there a lot more people who come out? And I guess you could also just talk a little bit about engagement in general. Are you getting, is there a lot of people coming to the ANC meetings?
I appreciate that question. I think that it belies the spirit of wanting to have community and wanting to have people there and wanting to have people informed. And I think you should keep that up and push for that when you get to be an ANC. I would say that ironically enough, or counterintuitively enough, some ANC commissioners don't share those values. Some people want to, tamp down notice, don't want a lot of people there. And people have a different focus for how meetings, how community engagement should be in meetings, is my experience. And I think that, it varies by commission how populated it is. And I would definitely say, I don't have the benefit of being a commissioner in the non-COVID era, so that's interesting. But I think COVID hasn't impacted that. I've talked to constituents and implored them to come to the virtual meetings, and I've had them tell me, I'm not coming to a meeting until it's in the Petworth Library again, like before COVID. So, that exists.
Okay, I'm gonna
I can say
go ahead,
for
Nancy.
I can say for ANC 3C, I think we've had more consistent participation in our meetings since we've gone virtual. We used to meet in the Cleveland Park Library. Prior to that, we used to meet at the police station, 2D police station, and we would get a lot of people if there was an interesting issue or a controversial issue, and then the room would be packed. But with sort of non-controversial agendas, we get a handful of people. Now with our non-controversial agendas, when we have those, we're probably have, I would say, at least 4 times more people participating on a consistent basis. And what really draws in the crowd is not so much a speaker as an issue. If there's someone from the DC government who is talking about a specific project, for example, that people are really interested in, they will turn out. Just inviting someone to come and talk about something more general or unspecific, that's not a big draw in my particular ANC.
All right, so as where we are at time, I think we'll go over until about 8:10. So I'm understanding some people may need to drop off, but as we go over this information, if folks could respond to questions that you see in the chat to your ability. The petitions, if you want to run, are available as of today. You do have to go to the Board of Elections at Judiciary Square, 441 4th Street, to pick them up during their business hours. And here's a little, no, you don't, Salim? Is that what you're telling me?
1050 Half Street.
Oh, they moved. Okay. Thank you for telling me that. Okay, 1050 Half Street, folks. Ignore what I said. I have not gone to the new office. I got to check that out. So there is a residency requirement. However, it's you have to have lived there 60 days before the election. So that's as of September 9th of this year. No other be serving no other elected office. You have to collect 25 valid signatures of registered voters in your single member district. It does not matter what party they are, anything like that. They recommend that you get 3 times, you get 75. So just to make sure that you have 25 good ones. Can somebody speak to the money aspect? What would you be raising money for exactly? What are you using money for if you're running for ANC?
So I think the Roger Neighborhood Commission campaign is like any other one. I tell folks, if you got a $0 candidate, you're going to get a $0 commissioner. But you would raise funds just to get flyers made, to get posters, t-shirts, buttons, however extensive you want your campaign to be. But even if you don't raise funds by setting up a link, if you just put your own money in, that's still funds being raised, and you still need to report that, even if it's just self-funded. So,
Right.
just keep that in mind.
There are a couple required forms, nothing serious, but just to be aware that you do have to, do these things in order to, be a valid candidate and get the seat. Let me pull up the maps real quick. The maps did change because of redistricting. And so you do need to look closely at your single member district and the new boundaries. You might likely have new boundaries. Let me see where I put my map. Okay, so here, the open ANC that Salvador just put in the chat is a good one. There's another one that DC government has up that, let's see, which version am I looking at? Okay, so I'm gonna pull it up. I think I got this through the anc.dc.gov website. And here we go. So here you can put in your address and you can search. So I'm going to put in our Ivy City Clubhouse. Oh, whoops, wrong computer. Which did actually have a bit of a change. And so it will show you who the commissioner is now and will the ANC and SMD change for this location? Boundaries can see, residents can see no boundaries either by printing PDF or downloading this map or viewing this interactive map. Okay, so there's the link for the new map. And so, yes, you do have to search a little bit. I will send out an email with these links and so that you can have them and see them. If there isn't, if there's something that you think should be included in the links that we send out, make sure that you put it in the chat or send it to me. But yes, you can search your ANC, and then there is the Open ANC website, I believe, is trying to track where is there vacancies versus, I guess, declared candidates, right? So like they're updating that.
I think that's that's an initiative by private citizen attempting to track that. So bear that in mind. But I think the official government entity, Board of Elections, updates as they process, who the candidates are. Is that right? Y'all?
Yeah, they have a
Okay.
spreadsheet that they share online on the BOE website that gets updated every time someone else decides to run, especially after everyone gets those petitions in. They'll have that all official, so you'll be knowing if you have competition or not.
Right.
Okay, so we're gonna move towards closing out. I know Peter had an urgent question. No?
I have a comment.
A comment. Okay, we give you
Just an encouragement for people to run, besides whatever immense power or weight we have. I think that Washington has an unusual culture that makes ANCs work. And I think it's not just that many of the people who run the city right now were ANC commissioners, but it's that we bear to them the kind of sort of the relationship they bear to Congress. So they're more sympathetic to hearing ANCs than other more powerful elected officials in other cities. And I think it means that community power in this city, oddly, in a city that is not sure that it has any power at all because the Republicans may take it away from us because we're not a state. These little commissions actually get listened to in a way that they wouldn't be listened to elsewhere. And that's by way of arguing you should run.
Well, I want to just thank all of our current and former commissioners who have done this great service for the district. It is, in my opinion, extremely inequitable that we ask people to do so much free labor in order to have our local democracy function. But that's where we are. I would say from an organizing perspective, again, just really think about this as the ability to build a base of power for your community, unite with others, certainly in your area and citywide, and let's use it for that force of good. I know there's a lot of immediate needs that you will be confronted with, people who are in need of looking for help with critical issues, and that could take up a lot of time. But as Nancy said in the chat, to really think about the best way to help people sometimes is to make sure you have a really good contact at an agency that you can pass people to, because you can't, unfortunately, solve all the housing crises and other issues. But what we can do, I think, is organize around the bigger picture issues, how we approach as a city, what our priorities are, how do we approach the development issues in our neighborhood, what are we getting out of the development, and what's our vision, what are our values, and how are we standing up for that. So I just want to thank everybody, our panelists. Can we give them a little round of applause? for all of their great work. Thanks everybody for being here. And if there's interest, we can do a follow-up, whether or not, we could do it before the election or after, but certainly we are interested at Empower DC with supporting not just ANCs, but civic association leaders, tenant association leaders, PTA leaders, everybody who's on the front lines of organizing in their neighborhoods. So consider this part of, we're part of one big family of people who are doing this work. Feel free to unmute and say goodnight to each other.
Good night.
Y'all be safe.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
And good luck to all the fundraisers.
Good night. Hi, Parisa.
Hi, it's been so long.
I
It's
know.
good to see some faces on here. I got I got Miss Jones, I got Miss Freeman.